So my name is Dick. I've been unhoused since April 2024. I currently live in a shelter in the city. And I'm not speaking about homelessness today as an abstraction. I'm speaking as someone who's living inside the system. And it's a part of what taught me how these systems work is in my own experience of being helped violently by police, where the official story of care did not match the reality of force used. But instead of telling you the details of my forced displacement, I thought I would instead share what I learned from that experience about how power operates to remain unaccountable. I want to talk about what happens after the violence. Because after it happens, the public often hears a different story. Not because the violence didn't happen, but because institutions know how to translate violence into the language of care. I want to name 3 ways that happens, because once you can recognize the mechanisms, it becomes much harder to be fooled by them. The first is renaming. A sweep becomes outreach. A forced movement becomes a wellness check. Destruction of property becomes property storage. A person being pushed out of a public space becomes someone being offered services. The action doesn't change. The impact it has on the individual does not change. Just the word used to describe it. And once the word changes, the official story about what happened changes, and the public imagines help instead of harm. People stop asking, was this violent? Was this person harmed? And start asking, were the services reasonable? We're social creatures, and we understand our shared world through narrative. And renaming takes away an unhoused person's authorship in the creation of that narrative and our understanding of our shared space. The second mechanism is procedure. When force becomes routine, it stops looking like force. It looks like policy, protocol, enforcement. It looks like people just doing their jobs. And procedure is persuasive because people are trained to associate bureaucracy with legitimacy. If something appears organized, documented, approved, procedural, people assume safeguards exist and that it must not be violent. But procedure can still be violent. Harm does not become humane because it was carried out professionally or because all of the checkboxes were ticked. It just becomes harder to recognize as harm because violence is often administrative before it is spectacular. The third mechanism is pathologizing refusal. If the help being offered is not in service to my goals as I set them, and instead is to what you believe my goals ought to be, or what you want them to be, that is not help that you have offered me. That is the definition of coercion. I want to be very clear about that. Help that I don't want is coercion. My goals, my life, my goals. And if you refuse to be coerced, then you are service resistant. If you object, you are in crisis. If you fight back, you are dangerous. If you disengage, you are non-compliant. Every response to coercion gets turned into evidence that that coercion was necessary. And this mechanism is powerful because it makes the system impossible to meaningfully challenge. The violence that is done to us cannot be wrong. Only we can be wrong. And this matters because Toronto is preparing for FIFA. Cities preparing for global spectacles often respond to visible poverty, not by solving it, but by managing it, displacing it, hiding it, renaming it. Because appearing safe is cheaper than becoming safe. Toronto wants to appear safe, orderly, and welcoming and humane. But appearing safe is not the same thing as being safe. A city can make poverty less visible without making anyone less poor. It can move people without housing them. It can increase surveillance without increasing trust. And it can expand enforcement without addressing the conditions producing harm. That is not safety. That is performance. That is hiding the evidence. So when officials later say public safety, ask safety for whom? When they say outreach, ask could the person refuse? When they say services were offered, ask what happened next to that individual? Because if public safety does not include the safety of the unhoused people, then it is not public safety being protected. It is image, comfort, reputation, or the expensive seats. Unhoused people are part of the public too. I am a part of the public. If Toronto wants to be seen as humane during FIFA, the answer is not better language for the same violent practices. The answer is different practices. Housing, non-police crisis response, real consent, real accountability, and treating unhoused people as residents, neighbors, and members of the public, not obstacles to branding. A city cannot market itself as humane while brutalizing the people it is trying hardest to hide. There are no shortcuts, Toronto. Do the work, earn it. I'm so sorry I went over time.
That's okay. Thank you very much. That was very powerful.